Alright, guys. I am gonna do election video. Yeah, let's do. Sorry, I had to take a breath a moment. Let's do 15 homes of people who hate the outside world. Really? Everybody does.
Aveeno Stress Relief Body Wash, clinically shown to help you relax.
We can all have a little bit of a curmudgeonly side, and we can all have those days where we just need to be alone with our thoughts, keeping ourselves to ourselves and avoiding all those pesky other people. But there are some that take that
Ooh,
hatred
log
of
cabin.
anyone
I always
themselves
want to
and
live
their
in the
own
log
homes a
cabin.
little too far. These are the homes of people who hate the outside world.
I'm not blaming them.
Number 15, Ellorey Island. For years, a picture of an isolated house sitting upon dozens of acres of land on an island circulated the internet, with no one really knowing what it was all about. Some speculated that the house belonged to singer Bjork, while others thought it was a celebrity house, or even one in case of a zombie apocalypse. Given its isolated position, the Vestmanna Eyjar island, known as Ellorey, off Iceland's southern coast, was a constant source of rumor and speculation. Did someone who really hated the outside world live there? As it turns out, no. Well, kind of. Around 300 years ago, 5 people lived on Ellorey and decided to live as a community away from the mainland. They wanted to survive on raising cattle, fishing, and hunting puffin. All went well
There's
for
nothing wrong with
200
that.
years, but opportunities were far greater on the mainland. Over time, the families left and built a lodge that they could use for years to come during the puffin hunting season. The house is still in use during summer for hunting, but it has no running water or electricity.
Witch hunting. Because deer season in my area, it's like around October. And through November, I think.
Now it's time for the odd topic. This photo was sent to us by a subscriber to the channel. Hi, by the way. And while we don't know who lives here, one thing we know for sure is this. Whoever it is must hate other people. The subscriber who sent the photo to us explained that it is home to an elderly couple who used the fortune they had amassed over several decades to build the place. From what he's heard, pretty much the second the home was built, they moved right in and have never been heard from since. Do you think you could live in isolation like this, or do you need your friends too much?
No, thank you.
Comment down below with the hashtag #OddTopic and let us know your
I would hang out with my boyfriend Nate and then hang out with my friends more. Not such. Not.
Village of Gassadollar. Imagine that these are your choices to get a home. Hike over mountain terrain over 2,000 feet high, followed by a miles-long trek, or clamber up a giant rock face from a boat. That was the reality for anyone living in the village of Gassadollar. The tiny village of
Gassadollar, that's what it
correctly, is located on the Faroe Islands, cut off from civilization by a ring of mountains and a tall cliff that overlooks the sea. If you're not one to spend a lot of time hanging out with people, then this island would be a paradise for you. Up until recently, the only way to access it was from stairs carved into the rock face from the ocean.
That's pretty waterfall.
Challenging mountain journey. Today, things are slightly
I'm a very town country girl, so you could say I could live on the mountain and get away from people. Means, yes, I'm gonna live with my boyfriend, of course. Like, because I love him. I would love to live in the cabin because I always want to live in the cabin log, so I like being in the woods, not.
Then there are those who see rocks and think, oh, that would make a nice home. And that's the story of Casa do Penedo in the Foz region of northern Portugal. Back in 1972, holidaymakers decided they wanted a getaway with a bit of a difference. Construction began of an ancient-looking home that was not all too different from something you'd find in the Flintstones' hometown. It was located all on its own in the countryside and consisted of rocks with a roof,
Flintstones, dabba dabba do.
There's plenty left to the imagination. On the inside, the isolated rock house with no electricity has log furniture and a giant 550-pound couch made from a eucalyptus tree. If you wanted to get away from the outside world and its modern ways, the Casa do Penedo State House would be an excellent
Not
place to
electric.
start. It's no longer
Forget
a
that.
home, but it is somewhere you can visit if you happen to be
Who?
passing through
What
Portugal.
happened? You
Number 12.
me calling somebody is injured.
If you're really not fond of people, then living in the Crystal Mill in Colorado is probably going to appeal. It's that tricky to access that people need to sign a waiver just to get that perfect photograph when they
Really?
visit. The Crystal
That's
Mill was
stupid.
a power plant known as the Sheep Mountain Powerhouse.
This
that was built
catalog
in
didn't want to live.
1892 along the Crystal River. It ventilated mines in the area and powered pneumatic
I'm a
tools. While it
woods,
sits abandoned
country
now, it would
girl
certainly
area
appeal
type of
to
girl I
anyone
am.
who would want to isolate themselves from others as much as possible. It's
I'm
only
not a
accessible
city
by challenging roads made of shale
person.
and granite, and many a vehicle has ended up upside down on the journey to get there. The narrow, bumpy, mountainous road is not for the faint of heart. The mill itself teeters on a sizable
That's
rocky
pretty.
face with the Crystal River flowing past. Homemade ladder access is the only way to get to it. If you don't mind lugging up one bag of groceries at a time, then this old mill would be perfect for your inner hermit. Number 11.
So that means if you get
Kotski
groceries to get the stuff.
Spending
Oh,
some
you
time
had to do back and
in
forth.
the hustle and bustle of everyday life
Man, that would be sucked.
Or so one man found by living in an old church on a limestone column around 130 feet from the ground. The Kotski Pillar is located
Don't
in the
get
village
wrong.
of Kotski in Imereti region.
I'm
in
not
West
afraid of
Florida.
hikes, but
The structure
no,
on the rock was
thank
built
you.
by the
It's
Stylites
way,
and
way
used
up.
from the 9th century until the Ottoman invasion of the 15th century.
No.
Accessible via ladder. The limestone rock has 3
What happened?
cells,
What happened
a
to collapse and
church, a
fall? What are
white
you supposed to
cellar,
do?
wall, and a stone crypt. It was supposedly built for Christian ascetics who wanted to spend their days in solitude on high pillars to get closer to God. It was rediscovered in 1944 by a Georgian mountaineer before becoming home to Maxim Kaftaradze in 1993. In 2013,
Since I was
Maxim
born.
gave an interview about why he decided to live on the pillar. He said that after being released from prison on drug charges, he wanted to purge himself of evil, meditate, and connect with God. He has remained there ever since. Number 10. Hermitage of San Columbano. How do you feel about climbing up a nearly 400-foot rock face or 102 rock-carved stairs with arms loaded with groceries to get to your home?
If me and my boyfriend Nate would live there, we will
If it means you can
stop
be
and
far
take
away from
out
people,
baths.
it might be worth it. The Hermitage of San Columbano is a little under 2 miles from Rovereto in northern Italy. It is
No,
a
thank
structure
you.
built on a sheer
It's pretty.
cliff face. Natural rock roofing shelters it from the elements, while its location makes it tricky to access by locals and visitors alike. Legend has it that the structure was dedicated to a saint who, when he was a young knight, killed a deadly dragon. The dragon was supposedly responsible for killing children who had been baptized in the Lino River below. The church dates back to around the 10th century and was inhabited from 753. It is now open to the public, but it sure would make for a great hideaway from anyone who needed to break away from people. It's nestled into the cliff face, almost camouflaged, and also forms the starting point of the Treasures of Tromboleno route. Number 9. Hagia Triada. If you're tired of nosy neighbors peering over your fence or being disturbed by door knockers trying to sell you vacuum cleaners, then Hagia Triada is the property for you.
Do they vacuum cleaner sales? Do they still do it today? I didn't know it still do it today.
Hagia Triada is a Holy Trinity monastery near
It's
the
pretty.
St. Stephen's Nunnery in Meteora that has been an organized monastery since 1362. It's perched at the very top of a giant rock, and there are around 140 steps just to get to the building.
Again, I'm not afraid of heights, but again, what happened is something collapsed.
The monastery has a chapel, a small church, and artwork
What are you supposed to do?
Believe it or not, parts of this building were also used for the final scenes of the James Bond movie, For Your Eyes Only. Therefore, not only
My
could you live
boyfriend
somewhere
loves watching that.
isolated from neighbors, but in a house you recognize every time you watch a movie. Number 8. Church of St. Johann in Ranui, Italy. With a backdrop of forests, dramatic mountains, and a blanket of blue sky, there'd be no better place to spend your days than in the Church of St. Johann in Ranui, Italy. Unfortunately, this isolated structure is not one you can call home, but it is available for rent.
That's a small chapel church.
The church and a nearby farm are the only structures around for miles, and that'll surely suit anyone who's not a fan of the outside world. The church has a shingle-pitched roof, a bell tower, and stunning artwork with full walls of paintings to add vibrancy and historical relevance. Probably more interesting, though, is the marbled wood altar on the inside. This structure has 2 paintings that show St. John Nepomuk presenting his tongue to Jesus. Absurd, sure, but adding to the appeal of this isolated building all the same. If you chose to call this church home, you could be close to life's necessities, but far enough away to enjoy whisper-quiet farmland all day, every day, and not a door-to-door salesperson in sight. Number 7. Tristan da Cunha, Tristan, Atlantic Ocean. If you ever wanted a decent excuse to miss a family vacation, then how about, sorry Mom, I'm stuck on an inaccessible island with a 7-day boat ride to get back.
It's one of the reasons I became an explorer.
That island is Tristan da Cunha, and it's a British outpost in the South Atlantic Ocean. There's no airport or deep harbor, and the only way in or out is on one of the 9 boats that arrive every year. Once you're there, you can't leave for a month, and that's many people's idea of bliss. Tristan da Cunha is home to a volcano cone.
I won't do it. I'd love to, but I won't do it. How you go work or something?
Call it home, and they cover a 38 square mile area. As far as industry goes, potatoes are the island's main crop. They also export lobsters and crawfish and raise livestock for island consumption.
See?
Tristan da Cunha is very much self-sufficient.
I do want to try crawfish.
Off the beaten track and away from outside,
To be honest, I never had crawfish.
Number 6. Lukomir, Kajik, Bosnia, Herzegovina. Technology is taking over, and this modern era can be stressful for those who don't feel like they can disconnect. If you want to escape from people and the digital age, then the village of Lukomir is the place to go. Just don't start your travels in winter, or you'll only be able to access it by skis. Lukomir is a 300-year-old village that sits nearly 5,000 feet above sea level, around 30 miles from Sarajevo. It's thought to be the most isolated village in Herzegovina and Bosnia, which is sure to suit anyone who's not a fan of the hustle and bustle of city life. While many towns and cities have evolved over time, this village hasn't. It still has old stone houses with cherry wood shingles, and women who live there even dress in wool garments that they would have worn over a century ago. Access to Lukomir is via a paved road, which turns to a dirt road for the final leg of the journey. Snow covers it throughout winter, making it only possible to enter with a robust pair of skis. However, if you do make the trip, you'll be well cared for. Lukomir locals offer you homemade Bosnian pie, tea, or coffee, and share stories of their life. Number 5. Adrir Amalal, Siwa Oasis, Egypt. There's something refreshing about being on holiday. Time doesn't matter, and you can live life at a leisurely pace. If you wanted to live like that all the time and away from the stresses of the outside world, then pack your bags and head off to Siwa Oasis, Egypt.
Finally made it to the Siwa Oasis.
They weren't lying when they put Oasis in the settlement's name. There are over 300 freshwater streams and springs, thousands of olive trees and date palms, and a giant saltwater lake. Not to mention roads that link Siwa to the Mediterranean coast to make it easier to access. There's no better place to spend your free time time than lounging around the tropical-like paradise of Siwa Oasis. There's no shortage of things to do either if you don't fancy being a couch potato the whole time. You can view the ancient mud brick town that sits above Siwa's main square and browse through the Siwa Museum with relics from days gone by. The limestone Mountain of the Dead and Temple of the Oracle are a short distance away as well. If you're not one to enjoy time spent in traffic jams and surrounded by crowds, then start planning a trip to Egypt sooner rather than later. Number 4. Just Room Enough Island, Canada. Have you ever felt crowded in your own home? Door-to-door salespeople turning up the hot coffee.
I've never been to Canada. My mom have. I haven't.
It can all get too much.
What's Canada like?
We've got the perfect home.
If you, okay guys,
East of Ontario,
comment
the St.
below
Lawrence
if you
River
live in
is
Canada
just
or a
room
different
enough
state.
island. And, well,
What's
there's just
Canada
room
look
enough
like?
for a
Because I
house
saw
and
some of
no
my
one
TikToks
else.
and
This island is the
some
smallest of
YouTubers are from there. I've
1,864
never been in
1,000
Canada,
islands
to be honest.
archipelago
So,
New York and Ontario share on the Canadian-U.S. border. It's around 3,300 square feet, which is around the size of a tennis court, and has a house.
I've been in New York, but I've never been
The Sizeland family purchased
Canada.
the home in the 1950s as a vacation lodge, and it quickly became a popular tourist destination due to its uniqueness. Its popularity is probably quite unfortunate if you were buying it to get away from people, though, as there's always someone lurking around to see what it's like. Even though it doesn't look like a real island, it's as legitimate as they come. It meets all the requirements, such as having one living tree, remaining above the water throughout the year, and being at least 1 square foot. Number 3. Bishop Rock, Isles of Scilly, Great Britain.
I would love to
If you don't mind
visit
occasional lousy
Canada.
weather,
Because I've been in New York City like 3-4 times.
having to get your groceries in by boat, then escaping to the Bishop Rock Lighthouse might be something to consider. If you
Man,
enjoy
it's so
the
cold
outside
in here.
world. Bishop Rock Lighthouse is on the Isles of Scilly in Cornwall and dates back to the 19th century. Because of how much of a battering it takes from the heavy seas, it had to be built stronger than any other structure in the area. The lighthouse builders learned that early on, when their first efforts were swept away before they could install the lanterns. It has a solid drum base with granite blocks, iron tie bars, and a granite encasement. It's also over 140 feet above the level of high tide. If you're all about the best views when you're property shopping, then you'll get all that and more with the Bishop Rock Lighthouse. Even the Isles of Scilly are going to be attractive for anyone looking to escape modern life. They consist of over 50 small islands and a cluster of islets nearly 40 miles from Land's End. Number 2. Paro Tak Sang, Paro Valley, Bhutan. If you usually have trouble reaching your 10,000 steps quota, then that could be a thing of the past by laying down roots in the Paro Valley in Bhutan.
You have to go back up.
Got
Look up
one
and
more
you'll
minute.
spot a temple with 13 monasteries,
Because it's
also
19
called
minutes.
tiger layers, that were long used by Buddhists for meditation in the 8th century. Legend has it that the holy Buddha Padmasambhava arrived at a cave high in the mountains on back of a flying tiger. Given the structures around 10,000
pretty.
feet above
I
sea
like
level,
that
we'd say he got off lightly.
texture.
Everyone else has to walk.
It's pretty.
It's not a journey for the faint of heart. From the valley floor, which is about 7,000 feet above sea level, you have to climb for around 2 hours to get to the tiger's nest 3,000 feet above. That
Damn!
means just to get to the temple, you're already 10,000 feet above everyone else. The steep
That
trail
would
is
take
the
you a
least of your
while.
problems, because you also have to tackle the altitude,
Me
mist,
and
the
my
views
boyfriend need
down
like,
to the
yeah,
ground,
we need to
which
sit down.
surely make your stomach drop. Still,
Ugh.
let's shortcut down on receiving unexpected guests. Number 1. Chess Pavilion, Mount
Because
Huashan,
that's a lot of
China.
steps.
If you're not afraid of heights, exercise, or new experiences, then are you ready for one of the world's most dangerous hiking experiences?
Here's how we're attached.
Mount Huashan in China will deliver. The mountain is over 7,000 feet high and is one of 5 of China's most sacred mountains. But unlike other mountains that are 100% natural, there are hidden gems within this one. As you climb, Taoist temples are dotted around the mountain, with shrines, tea houses, and pathways carved into crags. According to ancient
I'm not
Chinese
afraid of
legend,
heights,
the main
but
path up Mount Wushan took 3,000 years to build,
what
and was made
happened?
around
You
7.5 miles, but nearly 6,000
fall off
feet
the cliff of
skyward.
the walk or
That's all
something.
quite exciting and interesting, but what about the chess pavilion? Seemingly out in the middle of nowhere, a pagoda sits on a rock face with what looks like no way in or out. The only way to access it is with a dangerous climb down a rock face, making use of metal bars and old footholds. Once there, you can enjoy breathtaking views and a game of chess. That's one way to escape the outside world, that's for sure. Sure, living in a neighborhood with dozens of other houses is fine for street barbecues.
Alright guys, I'm gonna do one more interview, okay? I'll see you in the last one.
Would you live in any of these places?
No! Well, I could live in the mountain. I see you in my one more video, so see you then.